Hi, my name is Alex Shar, and I wanted to quickly show my process for creating apps using AI. I know that there's a lot of platforms and things where you can kind of quickly vibe code your app in general, but this is a structured approach to use the correct tools so that the app that you create is correct the first time, there's minimal debugging, and everything is as you wanted it to be. So let's get started. So typically I'll start by either talking to a client or myself and taking a voice recording of exactly what I want. I'll go through all the specifications of exactly how I'd like the app to be, how I want it to perform, etc. And so if I'm talking to a client, then I'll actually have the client go through, explain it, and then I'll ask them follow-up questions to get more probing. And then if I'm doing it myself, then I'll basically just explain, point by point exactly what I'm looking for. So here I've just opened up my Notes app and I'm going to go ahead and put together a recording for just an example. Okay, so I want to create an app that is an inventory tracking system. Essentially, I'd like to be able to upload my Excel spreadsheets of the way that our inventory system currently works. And I'd like it to be able to take that and from there create a way to track my inventory. I want it to keep up with my SKUs. I want to keep up with the product amount. I want to be able to add inventory and then also withdraw inventory. Initially, I'd like to have a scanning system where I can scan a product and it would either I'd be able to add or deduct an item from the list. I'd like to be able to quick search and also be able to pull and run reports about my inventory, how much I've used in a month. I'd like to also be able to add spending usage so I can see how much I'm spending in inventory and how much is going out. And I want it to be very user friendly. And then I'd also like there to be an interface for a user who has restricted access, who's not an admin, somebody who would be able to withdraw inventory, and that's all that they can do. And they'd be limited if there's not inventory available for them. So that's basically in general a pretty good starting point. It's very basic and it doesn't necessarily encompass everything that I need, but for the most part, it's very well-rounded in explaining what the type of app that I want. So from there, I'll take this recording and then I'll actually grab the transcript itself. I'll grab the transcript itself. So I'm going to open that up and take the transcript, pause that. And then I'm going to copy the transcript and I'm going to just create a new note, and you can do this in anything, but then I'm going to export it and it doesn't matter as long as it's something that, if it's like a PDF, Word doc, etc. But I'm going to copy it as a markdown file. I'm going to export it as a markdown file. And then I'm just going to put it on my desktop. That way I have it. And I'm going to name it Inventory App. Inventory App Transcript. Put that on my desktop. So from there, this is where it actually starts to get fun. So we're going to take this transcript and we're going to give it to ChatGPT and we're going to ask it to create a user story, but we're also going to ask it to implement and expand, tell it to tell us where it thinks things are a good idea, where things are a bad idea. That way we make sure that we've got, everything that we need just as a starting point. Anything that I might have forgot to mention in the recording, ChatGPT will help us fill in. So once you're in ChatGPT, you're going to want to upload that file of the transcript that we just added. And then I'm going to give it a very specific prompt so that we can get the output that we need to get this started. Okay, so this is the prompt that I'm going to use. You are a research professional leading a project for the design of an inventory tracking application. The core goal is to assess usability, identify pain points, and optimize user experience to ensure design meets user expectations. Use a systematic, evidence-based process and use to understand the user behaviors, needs, and motivations in order to create a comprehensive, professional, and informative user story. Focus on user needs and value so that this doc can eventually be translated into a technical specification guide for product development. Think very, very hard. It's crucial that your output is based solely on the documentation that I provide, and if you need any additional context, follow up with additional questions for more context. So looking at this specifically, The prompt that we've designed is very, very niched down and basically uses verbatim the terminology in what a user story is. And so I've taken the definition of a user story and injected it into this prompt. And so if you look closer at the prompt, I've given ChatGPT a role. You are a research professional leading a project for design of an inventory tracking application. You can basically reuse this prompt in any instance, just replace the last part, design of a blank, blank, blank. Put in whatever it is that you're going to use. The rest of it is basically telling it, look, I need you to understand exactly what this app is supposed to do, the pain points, etc. And then the really important part is this section right here that says think very, very hard. So this tells ChatGPT to use its strongest thinking model and really consider what I have and I'm telling it. And then also I've attached the markdown file for it to use. And so the other aspect of it is it's crucial for your output that your output is based solely on the documentation that I provide. So this means that Chat isn't going to hallucinate and just grab something from anywhere. It's going to focus on exactly what I provided it. And honestly, what I've given it is very, very bare. What you really would like to do ideally is to give it as much information as possible. But we're going to go ahead and send this in and we're going to see what Chat has to say about it. Okay, so Chat's finished its output and it says below is a source ground user story document based only on the documentation you provided, which is very important because we don't want it to hallucinate. I have not added outside requirements beyond that, what can be directly derived from your notes. Perfect. So that's, it's references my notes. So it says the inventory tracking application, the user story, and the UX requirements foundations. The purpose of this application is to replace or improve a current spreadsheet-based inventory workflow with a more usable inventory tracking system. The application should allow inventory data from Excel spreadsheets to be uploaded and used as a starting point for managing SKUs, inventory counts, inventory additions and withdrawals, scanning-based updates, quick search, reporting, and spending visibility, and role-based access. And if you pay attention to what I said initially, this is, in summary, exactly what I asked it to do. So it's giving me a product vision. It needs to be user-friendly, which is exactly what I said. An application that helps manage stock accurately, update the quantities efficiently, monitor inventory movement and spending, and it should support both administrative and user-restricted access users. Great. There's the administrator side that I said initially, and then the side for people who will be drawing things, with the latter limited to inventory withdrawal actions. Perfect. So the problem statement. The current inventory process appears to rely on Excel spreadsheets. So this is something that Chat is pulling from its own assumptions, which is really, really good because it's using the context of the initial document. Yes, we are relying on Excel spreadsheets, and this creates a need for a dedicated system that can ingest the current spreadsheet-based inventory structure, track the SKUs and product quantities, support inventory additions and withdrawals, make updates faster through scanning, enable quick product lookup, generate monthly usage reports, track spending and usage outflow, and support different permission levels and different users. Excellent. Now it's going through the permissions, the primary user needs, and identified for the documentation. What the core operational needs are, the speed and efficiency needs. So this is exactly what we're looking at. And so because this is a tutorial, I'm not going to take the time to read through all of this, but ideally, when you're doing something like this, you do want to read through all of it to make sure that the output that it is given based on what you have supplied is exactly what you want your app to be. And from there, it's also a really great place that if you have any ideas of things that you might have forgot or things that might have like some holes, you want to go ahead and fix it right here by giving it a follow-up and basically doing the exact same thing over again and telling it not to manipulate or edit what you currently have, but to append this to the initial sheet. So we basically got a really good structural setup. And one thing that I would definitely suggest in a situation like this is that one thing that we're relying on is that, oh, look, and good, it noted it. Featured priority based on documentation. High priority, the Excel spreadsheet upload. So it's paying attention to the fact that, we need the Excel spreadsheet. Ideally, just from my own experience, you would want to supply that Excel spreadsheet to ChatGPT, and then also the next model that we're going to use. That way it has that framework in mind so that there's not issues with compatibility of your Excel spreadsheet in this instance and what it's going to create for you. So as I continue to go through, this is really, really in depth, and it's now asking if we want a formal product requirement document next. So really, again, because this is just an example, I'm not going to take the time to give it an Excel spreadsheet, but the value in that is that it would then know exactly what type of spreadsheet it's going to take in, so it would know exactly what columns to create, etc. Okay, perfect. So chat was actually very proactive in this. So it says, actually, before we proceed, there's questions that need clarification before converting to technical specs. So these are not new requirements. They're gaps that remain unspecified in the documentation and would need answers before product specification. Excellent. I'm really glad that chat actually caught this. So it needs to know which exact columns exist in the current Excel spreadsheet. Should scanning use barcode, QR code, or another identifier? Should a scan immediately update quantity, or should the user confirm versus the deduct? What fields should exist on each product besides the SKU and the quantity? How should spending usage be calculated? What kinds of monthly reports are needed beyond the usage totals? So what I'm going to do is go through and actually answer all of these questions again with the same method. I'm going to do another voice recording, answer these questions, and then come back and put them in there. And then I'm actually going to create a spreadsheet to give it to it. That way we can have really accurate results. All right, so what exact columns exist in the current Excel spreadsheet? I've attached the document that includes the exact columns that exist in the current Excel spreadsheet. You can use that for your references. Should scanning use barcode, QR code, or another identifier? Scanning should include both. Should scan immediately update quantity, or should the user confirm and deduct first? Scanning should immediately update quantity, and optionally, the user can confirm or deduct. What fields should exist on each product besides the SKU and quantity? Those will exist in the document that I've added, and you can check that to answer this question. How should spending usage be calculated? Spending usage should be calculated by the amount that's withdrawn, and it should be calculated either on a daily, weekly, or monthly basis, or allow the user to confirm the time frame, but it should be calculated by withdrawals. What kind of monthly reports are needed beyond usage totals? We should know the amount of product totals, like the cost being added monthly, also the cost that's being withdrawn monthly, the most popular things that are withdrawn, and if there's any errors or inconsistencies within the totals. And should restricted users be able to search inventory before withdrawing? Yes, they should be able to search inventory before withdrawing in case they need an alternate product because something is like out of stock. And should there be an audit trail showing who added or withdrew inventory? Yes, that would be really good. I think that also, now that I'm thinking of it, users should have their own profiles. That way we can keep up with who is withdrawing what. And are there low stock alerts or reorder thresholds needed? Yes, let's have that to be custom set so the user would be able to define what a low stock is, and then also have the user be able to define what the reorder threshold would be. And then, is the app intended for desktop only, mobile only, or both? We're going to say, for now, actually we'll say both. Yeah, it should be desktop and mobile. Alrighty, and that should answer all the follow-up questions. So I'm going to take that same transcript and I'm going to give it to chat to follow up the questions. Okay, so from here, I'm going to go back to chat and say, I have answered your follow-up questions. Please consider them and make the user story complete without negating or changing any pertinent information from the original. Think hard. It is important you use only data I have provided and will provide. Additionally, I have added a document with the spreadsheet that includes all the Excel columns, stock quantities, and costs. Okay, so the follow-up prompt says, I've answered all of your follow-up questions. Please consider them and make the user story complete without negating or changing any pertinent information from the original. Think hard. It is important that you use only data I provided and will provide. Additionally, I have added a document with the spreadsheet that includes all Excel columns, data, and current stock, quantities, and costs. So now I'm going to paste in the follow-up questions, and then I'm going to go ahead and upload the inventory. And we're going to give that to chat as well. And then let's see what it comes back with. So this part might seem very long-winded, but it's actually so crucial that you provide the initial user story with as much information as you can and as much accurate and concise information. This is literally the backbone of your project, so you don't want to skimp out or, basically like come back and say, I'll provide it later. Because if you do it right the first time, there's going to be a lot less debugging and a lot less features you're going to have to add, or missing things, or wondering why the output wasn't what you expected. Okay, so chat has come back and said, here's the revised and more complete user story document that preserves the original requirements and incorporates only the additional information that you provided, including the spreadsheet column structure from the uploaded Excel file and your follow-up answers. So we're looking back at this. Okay, and then thus far, all of this has been the same, and I'm going to start looking and see where it actually made the changes. Okay, so then it has a section that says based on documents and follow-up clarifications, which wasn't super necessary for it to add, but this is also where I'm able to tell that, hey, this is where it's added the information that I just gave it. Inventory control, so the user uploads the use of the existing spreadsheet structure, maintains current stock information, tracked product quantities, add inventory, withdraw inventory, and monitor stock availably ready. So these are basically all of the follow-up questions that we've just given it. And then it also has the current spreadsheet's data structure, which is perfect. So now what I'm going to do, since I have everything the way that I want it, I'm going to take this user story, and then I'm going to create a new markdown file with it. And I'm going to take the follow-up part, at the end where chat says, hey, if you want, I can do this, out. So then I now have a complete user story. So now I am exporting this as a markdown, and we're going to call this the user story and put that in the same folder. And then we're going to go over to Claude so that we can create a more comprehensive and put together section. Okay, so now that I am in Claude, I'm going to attach the spreadsheet, and I'm going to attach the user story. So there is the spreadsheet for the inventory, and then this is the user story. Okay, and then I'm going to add this prompt here. And so the prompt says, you are a research professional leading a project for the design of an inventory tracking application, and the app is meant to track inventory, allow for inventory additions, withdrawals, etc., as well as run reports based on the data. I'm going to provide you with a document that the client has packed with information about the wants and needs of the app in a user story format. Please create a user story acceptance criteria using specific, actionable, and testable requirements that define the boundaries of a user story, acting as a checklist to confirm when a functionality is complete and meets stakeholder expectations. This document is meant to reduce ambiguity, prevent scope creep, and ensure that the delivered feature works as intended. Within this doc, you should define specific conditions that must be met for a user story to be considered complete. Focus and define what needs to be done and not how to implement it. Format it using scenarios such as given, when, then. Given I am on the login page, when I enter valid credentials, then I'm redirected to the dashboard, for example, in a clear, concise, and testable way. The overall purpose is to provide a shared understanding between the product owner and development team, aid in estimation, and form the basis for Q&A testing. Think very, very hard. It's crucial that your output is based solely on the documentation that I provide. So basically, very similar to what we gave Chat, but a lot more strict. So we're going to send that to Claude and see what it comes back with. So basically now we're following the protocols of what typical, software developers would do in order to create an app, but we are using AI to leverage basically the speed and accuracy that they can provide based on the information that I've given it. And so with this, I've kind of gone through what a team would be able to do in either days or weeks, and I've now done it in what looks like currently 20 minutes. So we're going to see if Claude has an output for us, and it's still thinking, so let's look at that. Okay, perfect. So Claude is just finished, and it's given me the document purpose, which is the scope and sourcing statements grounding everything to the client provided materials. Reference data structure, it's got the inventory fields, perfect, and then it's got the roles references, acceptance criteria by the user story, the traceability summary, the definitions and conventions, very professionally put together. And so basically we want to just read through this to make sure, especially if you're doing this on your own, you really want to read through this to make sure it has it exactly right. But in this example, I'm just going to skim through just to make sure that everything looks good. Okay, perfect. And so then once you've read through it and you've made sure that it exactly matches what you're looking for, then you're going to give it a follow-up prompt. And the follow-up prompt is to create an in-depth, technically detailed, step-by-step build plan to build this as a web app designed for both desktop and mobile application based solely on this acceptance criteria docs. Make sure that you follow the specifications of these docs specifically and do not deviate. Structure it in a way that is comprehensible and easiest to be built by a Claude Code agent within Cursor, which is how it will be built. Include a series of markdown files, including a starter prompt to kick off the project. Think very, very hard. I'm going to add an extra very in there. Very hard. This is an integral part of the success of this application. So from there, I'm going to just go ahead and download this. It already has it, but for best practice, I'm going to go ahead and give it to it again. That way it doesn't have to guess. This is exactly what I want it to refer to, and we will send it off. Okay, so we've essentially created a user story and acceptance criteria, and now we are having Claude Code or Claude build a build plan for Claude Code based off of the acceptance criteria, which is basically going to tell our agents in Cursor how to build this particular application that we've designed specifically step by step based off of everything that we got from ChatGPT and Claude, but all coming from my instructions specifically. Okay, so Claude just finished and it delivered us a build plan, a tech stack, a database schema, a phase 1 through 9, a validation checklist, and an acceptance criteria. And this is all zipped together. And then it also gave us a starter prompt, which is basically telling us that we're going to take this and beast it into the first Cursor agent to kick off the project. So again, ideally in this instance, you would take the time to read everything. I am not going to because this is just an example, but I'm just going to put this one in its own folder on the desktop, save it, and then I'm going to save I'm just going to copy that prompt. And then from there, I'm going to put that all into Cursor. Okay, so now I have Cursor open, and from there I'm going to just open up the folder that I downloaded from Claude so that it has all of the project folders. So I'm gonna open project, and then I'm gonna go and find, oh, I need to unzip it. So totally forgot, I need to unzip this. Now I've got it unzipped, and then from there, I will open project, and I will open the build plan, and that will be the starter project. And then from there, I will open Claude. So I am opening Claude Code right there, but then I'm also going to make sure that the project is indexed. I'm pretty sure that is for cursor, but I always do it just in case for best practice, and it's already indexed. There's not a lot of stuff in here, so that's perfect. I'm going to close that. And then we're going to put the prompt into Claude Code. And then we are going to send her off. And so now it's going to start building the project. It's following the prompt, which is basically telling it to read all of this and get started. And then while it's doing that, I'm going to open another Claude Code browser, and I'm going to tell it to launch a local host because I like to see what's going on while it's being built. And then from there, of course, you're going to have to accept all of the permissions and basically keep up with it, make sure that it's doing what it's supposed to be doing, and I will keep you updated as it continues to build. Basically, though, we've created an idea, turned it into a user story. From there, we created an action items list, a requirements list. From there, we've created a build plan, and now we are building. And so ideally what you'd want to do is to make sure that you are adding this to a repo, that you're creating new branches every single time a new feature is good to go, so that you've got that locked in, the code's good to go. If it breaks, you can go back to that repo. So in this version, we're just going to launch it to a local host, but also another thing to consider is that you could mention to Claude that you want to host it to an actual database and then link it to a domain. My go-to is Supabase because you can use a free version, and then Vercel for the hosting of the site. You can host it as an app with its own domain for free, and then if you buy a domain, it's very easy to connect it in that way. So it becomes an official app. But this is just an example to show you basically that you can create an app and have, get it right for the most part the very first try, make sure that it works, and then if you need to go back, debug, get the features, the way that you want them to go. But having a really strong, solid foundation in the beginning is the way to do it right. Okay, so it looks like thus far it's actually created the login. And so I went through to find the env file that's going to have the database login. So this is the email for the login, and then the password. Let's see if this will work. Ooh, yay! Okay, so looks like it already created the inventory. Like you've got a couple buttons for inventory, to scan, to import, some reports, the audit trail, and users, which looking good. And then of course it hasn't actually created anything yet, but we're not rushing it. It looks like it's only on phase 3 of, I believe, 7. So far, so good. And then I'm just also kind of going through some of this code that it's putting together. It looks like it's using TypeScript in general for pretty much everything. And then it's using a JavaScript framework. So far, I don't have any complaints other than it's ugly, but we'll fix that later. Okay, so one thing that I did think about as I was looking at it, yeah, it's ugly. And typically these things are going to be ugly. It's supposed to be useful. So that's not really how I like to ship products. I like them to feel intentional and like with a really good UI. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to actually preemptively go ahead and start creating a UI. So I'm going to make this smaller. Oop, I made it bigger so that I can continue to accept the edits as they come. But then I'm going to open up Google Gemini, and then we're gonna go to Canvas so that we can start seeing what we'd like the dashboard to look like. So I like to start by seeing what Gemini is going to give me just in general if I give it a prompt and then the user story. So here is the prompt: using the build files, design a UI that uses the user story as inspiration. Any follow-up questions you have, use the tone of the user story to create your own context to answer. And if you're unsure, default to an Apple Swift UI design style, which is my favorite. I think it's really pretty. So that's kind of what I go with. So now I'm going to go ahead and attach the user story. And then also, for good measure, it doesn't hurt to just go ahead and give it the acceptance criteria as well. That way it can understand in what regard what's going to be built. But this is ideally going to match what Claude Code is currently building in Cursor right now. So I'm going to go ahead and give it the acceptance criteria doc. And then we're going to make sure that it's using Canvas. And it's pretty much always going to build this as an HTML, which is great because then we can take that code and give it back to Claude to basically help us set up the next part. Okay, so on the first try, this is what Gemini has come back with. And honestly, it's really not bad. There's a spot to scan it, there's the inventory value, a place to add an item, we've got the list of the stock. I think it looks really nice. So now I'm going to take this code and I'm going to open up Claude again, and I'm going to paste the code in there, move myself, and then I'm going to give it a new prompt to basically redesign the UI. So just a second. So what we're going to do is we're going to go into Cowork, and then we're going to take this prompt. So this is what we're going to do whenever Claude Code is done with our application. So what we're going to do is make sure that we've shipped it, it's working, it's good to go. As soon as we have that confirmation, it's done, working, we've pushed the repo, we can go back to it if we break it, trying to fix the UI to make it pretty. Then we'll actually start doing this. So basically, what we're going to do is we're going to go into Cowork and we're going to give it this prompt right here. It says, you are a lead engineer for UX/UI, and you have been tasked with redesigning this project UI based on the attached HTML file. You are not to make any changes that would alter or break the current configured project or its standing features. Study the current code base and compare the current UI. Make a list of inconsistencies with the proposed UI that has been attached and the actual project UI. Create a comprehensive plan to reconfigure the current UI to match the current feature compatibility of the application. Do not write any code or make any changes. Simply study the application, build and create the build plan for the UI redesign. Think very, very hard. It is critical that you completely understand the application functionality and its features and translate that knowledge in your proposed redesign. And then from there, we are going to, that is the prompt. We're going to take the code from Gemini, and then we're going to paste it in there. And then we're going to attach the project that has the file that actually has the build in it itself. So then we're going to choose the folder that actually has the build plan itself. That, always allow. And then once we're ready, we're going to send this off. Okay, yay! So the app itself is done, and so we're going to go through and test the functionality of it. Oh, yay! We can add stock. Woohoo! We can withdraw stock. Look at the dashboard. Perfect, 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 perfect. And then we can scan. That's myself because I am on the video using my phone. Let's see if it'll do this. This is maybe not. Well, we'll work on that. Okay, so then, okay, awesome. This is where we'll be able to add the actual spreadsheet itself. Here's the reports. Yay, I just took 2 of those out. Yes, perfect. Awesome. Yay, yay, yay. Everything is working well. We can add a restricted or perfect. Actually, let's go ahead and test that. So we're going to say non-admin and then non-admin at Yahoo. And then we're going to give them password of, whatever. We're going to give them restricted. Perfect. Excellent. Okay, so everything is looking really good. So now, really, really important, we are going to push this. We're actually going to push this and create a repo. So next we're going to say a repo and push this. And so from there, you're going to have to log in to your GitHub, authenticate everything. I'm already logged in and set up in that way, but basically what we're doing is taking a snapshot of our code so that, the shipped, ready to go version works. And that's basically what we want. It's good to go. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, awesome. So now it is pushed. I'm going to visit, go ahead and sign in. Okay, awesome. So here is my repo looking real good. It's got all my files in there. Perfect. Woohoo! Okay, awesome. So we've got that locked in. So now we're ready for phase 2, which is where we tell Cowork that our build is ugly and we want to make it pretty. So we've given it the example and the prompt. It knows exactly what folder we're going to be working in, which is this one right here. And then we're going to send it off to get started. And like I said, so right now it's creating a build plan. It's not actually going to be editing anything. And so, because when we have it edit something, we're going to need it to edit on a new branch because we don't want it to be messing with our main branch because that's where our good code is, our working shipped project. So let's see what it gives us back. All right, so Cowork has just finished its build plan. And it basically looked for any inconsistencies and any incompatibilities with our current code base. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to implement this new build plan document, but what we're going to do is create a new branch and then start that way. That way it doesn't affect our current code. Okay, so after looking at this, I can see that Claude went ahead and already added it to our docs that are within the current cursor build. So now all I have to do is open that up, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new chat with Claude, and I'm going to tell it to create a new branch and work on this branch from here on out. Call the branch redesign, and then I'm going to say underscore v1. And let's send that. So now what Claude's doing is creating a new branch so that it doesn't mess with our original code. And then that is when I'm going to prompt it to read the new build plan doc. So I'm going to pull it up. It's called UI redesign build plan underscore MD. So it's building that. So now I'm going to say read at. So yeah, in Claude, what you want to do, in Cursor, what you want to do is use the @ sign to use doc. Build plan redesign and begin implementation. Great. So it's initialized the repo, made initial commit on main, switch to the redesign, and we're now on redesign. Okay, perfect. So now we are going to implement the redesign. So same process over again. We're going to let it cook, and we'll come back and see how it's looking and make sure that it's still functional before we push it back to the main branch. Okay, so we got our first little sneak peek of the redesign, and it's looking really good. This is most definitely on par with what Google Gemini gave us. So like this is the version, and then this is Google Gemini's version. And so yeah, definitely Claude understood exactly what I was asking it to do, and it looks like in general it has preserved the functionality and the features. Looks like only the inventory page thus far has been updated, but we'll keep looking. And I was actually curious if Claude actually included the original doc. So it did. So we've got the wireless mouse here in the uh, right here with the SKU of WH underscore 1001. That matches. And then it's got the quantity of 142, and that also matches. And so it's got the IL on the shelf. So yeah, it took care of that. It didn't even need to be uploaded in here either. So looking really good. Okay, so it just finished, and honestly, it looks a whole lot better than it did before. I personally would probably go back and make a few more changes, but like it's good. It's ready to go. So from here, we're going to go ahead and push this branch, and we're just going to tell Claude to push this branch. And then from there, we can do a pull request and we can merge it. I honestly would just push the branch and leave it at that and then go through and like actually test it to make sure it's working well. But you know, you guys, you do you. And so, but yeah, that's basically top to bottom how you're going to, you know, get something set up from the beginning and have it structured in a way that would allow for you to get it right the first time so that you don't have to go back over and over again, add new features, implement, debug, etc. Of course, you definitely want to be more thorough than I was in this tutorial, but ideally, this is generally my process, and if you're not doing it, you might try it too. Maybe it'll work for you as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helped.